Okay, pre-scan. Let's start this show.
Let's start here. If you were to ask some people, historians, lawyers, diplomats, what is not supposed to happen in the modern world, one answer will come up again and again. A sitting president being captured by another country. Not sanctioned, not condemned, not isolated, captured. That word alone breaks expectations because it challenges the idea that the global system still runs on rules instead of power. And yet, here we are. So before we talk about whether this was justified, before we talk about legality, before we talk about morality, we have to answer a simpler, more dangerous question. How did the world arrive at a point where this was even possible? For most of the 20th century, the relationship between the United States and Venezuela was not dramatic. It was not ideological. It was not emotional. It was not confrontational. It was transactional. Venezuela possessed enormous oil reserves. The United States needed energy stability. That relationship produced predictability. The U.S. did not aggressively interfere in Venezuela's internal politics. Venezuela remained economically integrated into the Western system. There were disagreements, but not hostility. And that matters because it tells us something very important. This conflict was not inevitable. Everything changed in 1999. That was the year when Hugo Chavez became president of Venezuela. Chavez did not quietly assume power. He did not reassure Western institutions. He did not maintain diplomatic ambiguity. He openly rejected U.S. influence. He framed Venezuela as a nation that has been exploited. He positioned sovereignty as resistance. He described American power as imperialism. This was not just a speech, this was policy. Oil policy was restructured. Military cooperation with the United States declined. Foreign alliances shifted away from Washington. From the U.S. perspective, Chavez was destabilizing. From Venezuela's perspective, Chavez was reclaiming control. Both sides believed they were reacting defensively. That misunderstanding would never be resolved. In April 2002, Hugo Chavez was briefly removed from power during a coup attempt. Within days, he returned. The Venezuelan government accused the United States of supporting the coup. The United States denied direct involvement. But the long-term effect had nothing to do with proof. It had nothing to do with belief. From that movement forward, Venezuela's leadership operated under one assumption: the United States was willing to remove them. Once that belief takes hold, trust does not recover. Every protest becomes suspicious. Every criticism feels coordinated. Every sanction feels preparatory. This is how paranoia becomes policy. From 2002 onward, the relationship hardened. Venezuela moved closer to non-U.S. allies. The United States became increasingly critical of Venezuela's governance. When Hugo Chavez died in 2013, Nicolás Maduro inherited not just power, but unresolved conflict. The economy was already fragile. Political polarization was already extreme. International trust was already broken. Maduro did not create this environment, but he governed inside of it. Under Maduro, protests intensified. The government responded with force. The United States accused Venezuela of human rights abuses. Venezuela accused the United States of economic sabotage. Two narratives formed: In one narrative, Maduro was an authoritarian clinging to power. In the other, Maduro was resisting foreign destabilization. These narratives did not compete. They hardened separately. And then the United States formalized pressure. This is where it gets deeper. In 2015, the United States issued an executive order declaring Venezuela a national security concern. This was not symbolic. It created legal authority for sanctions. Sanctions that restricted banking access, froze assets, and pressured international partners, and reduced economic oxygen. From the United States' perspective, this was accountability. From Venezuela's perspective, this was economic warfare. Regardless of interpretation, the result was clear. Economic suffering deepened, political positions hardened, and diplomatic solutions narrowed.
(1953) Iran nationalizes oil, coup. 2003, Iraq says no more US dollar for oil, coup. 2011, Gaddafi says gold-backed African currency for oil, coup. 2025, Venezuela has 1 trillion in gold and 17 trillion in oil, won't sell it to is not real, and won't use US dollars when they send it to China? Kidnap the president, coup. 1953, Iran nationalizes oil, coup.
Monopoly, baby, monopoly. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200. You go straight to jail. Welcome to the newsroom, everyone. I'm your host, Henry, with your co-host, Shin, Akuma, JML. We here with another one. It's been a long time coming. I know a lot of y'all miss us, but had to go on a little vacation. We're going to do a little video or presentation on the channel talking about Universal Studios in Orlando. You know, your boy Henry had to go see who? Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Where are you? What's up, Shin? How everything been?
Hey, I'm good to go. You already know, big dog. Chilling.
Yes. We talking about today the kidnapping of a city president of Venezuela, and also a conflict that been simmering for a while that came back in the headline, and that is Greenland. We did a show on Monopoly, Donald Trump using geopolitics as a monopoly board of taking territory and add it to America's responsibility. Not just under its influence, but under its control. Not influence, but control. We have Donald Trump talking about taking the resources of Venezuela, selling it But the first customer have to be United States. And the money is directed to wherever the sitting president decides. How you feel about that, Shin?
Yeah, it's tough, bro. It's tough. That's all I can say. You know, we've been anticipating this move. Excuse me. Anticipating this move for quite some time now, maybe like 4 to 6 months. We've been anticipating this move. Um, I think it puts a strain on the political outfit in America because the international it basically, you know, it's an international incident, right? And the violation of another country's sovereignty, number one, first and foremost, even though I don't support Nicolás Maduro personally, you know what I'm saying? But I do understand international laws and procedures, you know, so you're not supposed to be able to just go up in somebody's country. But if you ask me if I'm shocked that we did it, no, I'm not shocked about that. You know, it just brings us back to the Iraq situation, Saddam Hussein, you know what I mean? Like the brother said in the video, Gaddafi and these folks that they got to understand we've been doing this, the United States, for decades now, maybe even a half a century. So you know what it is. You can't destroy the petrodollar or try to attempt to decouple from the petrodollar without some type of United States extreme response to that economic turmoil, because you know you can't that would be destructive for our economy. And on top of that, you know, Venezuela sitting on 20% of the world's oil reserve, and with the largest oil reserve in the world, and the United States couldn't afford it, you know. And on top of that, Venezuela was one of the members of the BRICS Bank, but now that's all taken care of. And like they said, they're not. It's fortunately the people of Venezuela are in agreement, you know, the populace, but at the same time, you know, we seen what it did to Iraq. It destabilizes the civilian apparatus, the governmental structure of the company, the country, and it also puts a monopoly on the oil industry in Venezuela, in the privatized industries, corporations like ExxonMobil, BP, and Shell Gasoline Corp and stuff like that. That they're going to be the ones who are going to benefit from this move. And I don't know how you arrest a sitting president of another country on criminal charges in the United States, criminal charges. Remember, he's not going to military tribunals. You know what I mean? He's not going into international courts. But you know, it is kind of good in reality though too, because like I was watching something about it, and one of the analysts said, what's going to stop the UN or the international court from doing the same thing to Netanyahu now?
Yes.
You know, so it's setting a very dangerous, I want to say, standard that people can invade other people, countries can invade other countries and take out the sitting president or prime minister, etc., and not really have any absolute justification for that.
Yes. And adding to what you've been saying is this right here. For a human view is sad. It's like United States is doing some imperialistic things. But as an economy, looking at the economy, looking at the geopolitics of everything, you see America as an empire. And it might not be the physical America as having boots on the ground, but the dollar bill. Like you said, the petrodollar. You need the dollar to buy and sell commodity such as oil and petroleum-based products. And with that, you have Venezuela. Venezuela reserve is greater than Saudi Arabia, Russia, United States, Iran. It wasn't getting sold to the West as sanctions stopped Venezuela for doing so. But in return, Venezuela started dealing with United States adversaries, as such as Russia using dark fleets and using Cuban intelligence agency, selling oil to China in the yuan. We also had, you got to see to the point that this is the same thing that occurred with the British. As to keep America dominant, you send your military out with exploration, explore. That means discover new resources, and you have people who invest in them claims to go out and journey. But now everything is established. Countries have its boundaries. But this said new president, because like you said, Shin, we have states such as Taiwan would not give China the legitimacy to go into Taiwan and take their sitting prime ministers and presidents and administration out of power. What justification America would have to stop Vladimir Putin for going into Ukraine and taking Zelensky out?
Charging them with crimes, right, in Russia.
Yes. Or just taking them out the country and installing their own power with a decree. Would not give Iran and other Middle Eastern countries to come together and create an operation that involved the state of Israel. Who is the police? Who is the judge? Who is the jury? United States. This has been going on for years. It's been on the stage that it was United States who authorized the coup that put Chavez and Maduro in power. It was United States. And when they got into power, they knew United States tactics with interfering in government business. Corporations coming and looking at profit. United States don't like communist countries, do not like countries that nationalize the wealth. If I nationalize the oil and the resources of the country, that means whatever benefit, whatever money that come from those resources will keep the government afloat. And the government, what do the government deal with? They deal with civil actions such as road infrastructure and much, much more. But you have United States come in and sanction the oil, so there's no money that's flowing in to keep the economy afloat.
And that's because they want the free enterprise, capitalism.
And with capitalism, people got to understand with capitalism and democracy, only a few rule the many. Only a few rule the many.
And usually it's not politicians either. It's
No,
CEOs,
corporations,
CEOs and bankers.
mutual fund, trust fund,
hedge funds.
Hedge fund, yes.
They wanted that oil on Wall Street. That's really what it was. They wanted to be able to put that oil up from Venezuela on sale in Wall Street.
And what we need to know is to do our research and look up a company called, let me not say it right, I think Citco, that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on the CIT. Yeah. No. Yeah, Citco.
CIDDO.
Yeah, Citco. When we deal with Citco, see who the owner is. See why the vice president of Venezuela saying that it's the Zionists who want Venezuela. You have United States. This the justification United States will use, that under President Barack Hussein Obama, we asserted that Venezuela was a national security risk. Under President Barack Hussein Obama, they discontinue recognizing Venezuela's legitimate president Maduro. We got to remember that it was under Barack Hussein Obama administration that United States recognized Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela in exile. And all the oil resources that was getting collected and funds that got seized by the United States was given to the opposition.
Yeah, because that's because Maduro did not successfully win that election. So they threatened him. They threatened the other man with they was going to take him out. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, Henry? They had to get him out of there. They had to get him out of the country.
I look at it like this: United States media and the United States administration and Western power said it was illegitimate. He wasn't actual president. But we have statement for somebody who is more trustworthy. Former President Jimmy Carter. He said Venezuela election system is one of the best he ever seen. More better than United States. we understand United States media is propaganda. Is legacy media. They'll push the notion that he legitimate, but none of the military intervened to take him out. The military recognized him, and the people only exiled people that used to own companies that was taken over by the regime.
Hey, let's not forget too, right? Let's not forget that this is all pomp and circumstance, political theaters, because at the end of the day, because people's gonna always, you know what I mean, see it for the surface value, but I always gotta go reading in between the lines. And if we see, because I've heard some rumors that by the first week of February or January 31st, they were saying that Maduro was gonna get they're gonna let Maduro free, but he had already made the deal. That's why they took him out of Venezuela, so that way he wouldn't be getting hit or nobody would try to assassinate him after the fact that he had already made the deal with the United States and the Zionists to basically do what's going on right now with him not in the seat of power, which is to control the oil production and to control the development of the oil production in manufacturing in Venezuela in order, to send it to Texas. So they got those major oil refineries. We've talked about that on several previous shows about the oil refineries out there in Texas. And in order to make the massive amount of petroleum products, including big pharma, including household products, and including all type of other synthetic materials that needs oil to be created, petroleum. And it's one of those things where that's why he was brought out on criminal charges, because if you really understand world politics, you don't send the military Delta Force to make an arrest. You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest, because remember, they're telling us he was arrested. He was captured, meaning he was arrested. He was put under arrest. We saw him with handcuffs on, etc., etc. So that means he's under arrest. So that means it's criminal charges. We're talking about criminal charges out here. So you gotta understand, that's something that they would have to send the FBI or the DEA or someone like that for drug enforcement. That's not the military's responsibility for drug enforcement. But it was executed in a military standard, but they're not holding him on a military standard or military charges. And that's why he's not being charged in military tribunals, but he's being charged in the civilian courts in New York City. And that's where, personally, that's where I think it's a little bit out of order, because how do you arrest another country's sitting president for criminal charges in New York State, and you do it with the United States military, but he's not going to go to the military tribunal to face these charges? Because it's the same thing like with El Chapo and Manuel Noriega and various other narco traffickers. When they went after those people, they didn't send the United States military. They sent the DEA and the FBI. You know what I'm saying?
But when we look at the overall view and look at future, because this said presidents, this said future conflict that could arise. And what I mean by that is United States power is weaning. Chinese power is growing to the point that they could shut United States future development down. They could cripple America's greatest infrastructure in the 21st century. United States is one of the leading countries dealing with microchips, chips as far from jets. Things like that need resources, stuff like cobalt and other resources, minerals. I can't pronounce all the minerals and resources, but you have resources that China have up to 98% control over. Resource that is used for the casing of ammunition. Minerals that help with semiconductors. We have resource that we need from China, and China is cutting America out of the market. China is buying oil from places like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela with the yuan, not United States dollars. And that set precedent for other countries to file suit. And when United States dollar cannot sustain its power, when countries start not using United States dollars, that will not sit well with United States inflations. People tell the United States.
That's bringing us to the next half of the show, with the United States in the talks for the acquisitions of Greenland, because Greenland holds all of the rare earth minerals that the United States needs for modern industrial production. So that's why it's important that we have an understanding of why they're taking these things into consideration and making these type of moves, is because typically, it's trying to keep the manufacturing production in order and relatively relevant for the modern time and into the future. So that way, even if China does corner the market, we already have our own supplies in mining that will be able to acquire these rare earth minerals, rare earth metals, in order to keep the flow of the semiconductors, microchips, and we got to even take it a step further, because it's 2026. The micro computers, micro and nano computers as well. The very intricate designs that they have for these microscopic computers, these microscopic instruments that they've been creating as well. So, and too, Henry, we need the oil too out of Venezuela, the petroleum, because that's also for the production of the vaccines and the various medical field apparatus and pharmaceutical industry.
So, see, United States, they pimped the system to the point that when I said earlier that United States did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela, that would allow United States to look at him as a citizen. Right. We don't recognize you as the president, so under our jurisdiction, you is a criminal.
Yeah, but see, that's the president. That's the president that becomes dangerous, because now let's flip the coin, right? Let's flip the coin. On the other side of the world, in the Far East, North Korea, Xi Jinping has already done the same thing to Netanyahu. He doesn't recognize him as a prime minister or president, and he doesn't recognize Israel as a country. So what would be preventing them from doing a similar capture of Benjamin Netanyahu to bring him for justice in the World Court for war crimes, especially because Maduro, let's do the math, right? Maduro, on this hand, he was only wanted by the United States of America. He was only wanted by the United States. Benjamin Netanyahu is wanted for war crimes in 124 countries right now. 124 countries. You know, out of the 200 and something countries that there is in the world. So more than half the countries in the world got Benjamin Netanyahu on the terrorist list and wanted for war crimes. So we have to understand this is a very dangerous game and a very dangerous precedent that they're setting over here. You know, because in all facets of the reality, you know, they captured Maduro the day Benjamin Netanyahu left Washington, you know, and they're saying, a lot of the analysts and a lot of the insiders are saying that it was Netanyahu who gave the green light to get Maduro up out of there. You know, because, you know, the converts, you know, that's how they do. You know, they're colonizers, so they can convert you, right? Except this time it ain't religious. It's, you know, they came into America, United States, with that pretense into colonialism, right? To convert people, you know, convert the people in a religious manner, right? In that time. And now in the modern time, in 2026, it's an economic manner. You know, they want to convert you economically to their caste system, right? Which we've talked about this on several shows too. This because this is just the appropriation of the Venezuelan people. That's why a lot of people on social media have been saying it might as well be called the United States of Venezuela now. You know, because it's a colony of the United States at this point. Because remember, what did Trump say the next day? He said, we're not putting anybody in the president's seat in power. The Delta Force is still in the Capitol building in Venezuela, Caracas. They're still in the Capitol. They're still in power. And you said we don't got boots on the ground, but technically we don't have our military in a large capacity like an invasion force like we did with Iraq, because it was unnecessary. It would be unnecessary in that capacity to have that type of force where it's unnecessary, because the Venezuelan military really didn't put up much resistance. And like I said here in the show, the Venezuelan people didn't like Maduro anyway. They didn't see him as a good leader. He was like a Netanyahu type to his people too, where he was committing the war crimes and committing crimes against humanity against his own people and living a life of luxury while they was living off poverty. And it's just, you know, that's what makes it kind of hard to be judgmental on what happened if you're looking at it from a humanities perspective. This is a good thing for the people of Venezuela, but like Trump said, they're not going to get power or assume power back over their country until we got a well-established program for the oil production and distribution. So who knows how long that's going to take. You know, we might as well just go off the example that we've already been given with Iraq. You know, Iraq took 20 years to get out of that war. It took 20 years to establish the country to legitimacy that was to the standard of the United States and the Allies in order to allow them to reinitiate their self-governance. And I feel like it's going to be the same thing with Venezuela. It might not take 20 years, but it may take 5 to 10, though, for them to reassume power. And who knows what could happen in 5 to 10 years. We know Trump will be out of here by that time. So that we would have to see what the next president is going to say about the occupation of Venezuela, because people don't want to say what it really is, but it's really that Venezuela right now is under military occupation by the United States of America, which means that technically Venezuela is not even a country anymore. Technically, if we're going based on the premise of what constitutes a nation and what constitutes international sovereignty, Venezuela has no international sovereignty because, like Trump said, the United States is going to be in control of all the head of the politics and all of the head of the economics of Venezuela. And if you don't control the politics and you don't control the economics in your lands, then how can you consider yourself a country?
Yes.
Does that mean Venezuela? And then that brings up the question too. Does that mean that the Venezuelan military is now the United States military?
So now we looking at a lot of conflicts that occurring from the same incident, but have far-reaching episodes. United States seized Venezuela oil tanker, 2 of them. Then turn around, they was going to seize another oil tanker. It did not have any oil in it. But the ship painted a flag on it. And it raised the flag. Not just any flag, a nuclear power flag. A country that have nuclear weapons and submarine that could come and intervene. And that country is Russia. See, Russia used dark fleets. That's what they call them, dark fleets. Because Western fleets are oil tankers and Western insurance do not want to insure the safety of Russia cargo, do not want to ship Russia cargo, and they don't want to have any transactions in the dealing because of the United States sanctions. Because Russia and the United States is not on good terms at the moment. But these dark fleets help Russia skip these sanctions because it's around 1,000 fleets. Countries like Iran, Venezuela, and Russia use these fleets to sell their oil and petroleum-based products on the market. The countries like China. If the United States stopped these fleets, it stopped the growth of these countries. So that would open the opportunity for these countries to feel the need to have a legitimate reason to go after the United States interests. Because the United States have tactic of sanctions which cripple markets, which people starve in their country, where the countries cannot build up and be the best that they can be because it's unstable. America destabilized these countries like Venezuela. So now we have America could use this crisis to go after 3 other countries. The last country we're going to go into more detail. But we have Cuba and Mexico as the first 2 countries. Mexico sell oil, historically sell petroleum-based product to Cuba. They have not increased their selling because the United States knocked out Venezuela because Venezuela helped Cuba. Venezuela was a good friend of Cuba. But
hey, remember the
Mexico,
Cubans was they had the Cuban special forces protecting Maduro. So
yes.
we know that it was a collaboration, you know what I mean? It was a cooperative effort.
So right after United States went after Maduro, told Cuba, told Colombia, and Colombia in this picture, that he had come after them. He made threats, and as we see, as history show, that when Trump make a threat, he going after. He like, hey, I'm gonna roll these dices and I'm gonna land on this monopoly. So I would be wary if I'm Mexico, because we know a lot
I
of
think it's gonna
drugs.
be a little bit difficult too, because those countries gotta understand, right? A whole 1/3 of the United States fleet is already in the Caribbean. It's already there. So it's nothing to change scope, you know, onto Cuba, send the ships to surround Cuba, bring some people, bring some ships from the Pacific Fleet in and start to posture against Mexico on the Western Front and really dig in and get ready to acquire these other nations, because this is, if you ask me, this is just neo-colonialism, and it's at the Zionist behest and the greed of corporate America. You know, if you don't agree with corporate America, they're gonna take you out. They're gonna invade you. They're gonna parade you. They're gonna berate you, and that's it. You're gonna be done up. We're gonna take everything out the country. We're gonna take all your resources, and we're gonna take everything that makes your country valuable.
Yes, yes. So now we have a country that most Americans like, nah, this country shouldn't be on the list. What this country got to do with Donald Trump and American national security interests? They don't sell drugs, but they got resources. They got a strategic location. Let's get into it. This country is called Greenland.
President Donald Trump reasserted in the new year that the United States wants Greenland.
We need Greenland from a national security situation.
Trump said a newly appointed special envoy would lead the charge, drawing sharp criticism from Denmark and Greenland. Let's take a look at why Trump is interested in the vast Arctic territory. Greenland is strategically significant for the US military. The shortest route from Europe to North America runs through it. The US has said it wants to expand its existing military presence on the island. That includes placing radars to watch waters in the region used by Russian Navy vessels and nuclear submarines.
Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Shipping data show most Chinese and Russian activity in the Arctic is in waters near Russia. But more broadly, the Arctic is becoming more militarized, with NATO states, China and Russia all expanding activity there. The island is also rich in minerals, oil, and natural gas, though development has been slow and mining has seen very limited US investment. Legally, Greenland is a territory of Denmark, which is a NATO member. In 2009, it was granted broad self-governing autonomy. That includes the right to declare independence from Denmark through a referendum. Polls show most of Greenland's 57,000 inhabitants back independence, but many of them also fear a hasty move for independence could leave them worse off and expose the island to the US.
See, this go deep. But before we go deep, let me show you the screen real quick. If you go back into our live videos, you'll see we did a show. Why is Trump pushing America expansion? Let's go into a little bit of it.
People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world.
Donald Trump says he wants Greenland, Canada, and the Panama Canal. But is this
Okay. We did a show months ago. You could go pull it up with the Monopoly. We back with the Monopoly board.
Yes, sir.
We went into the Panama Canal. We told Panama, you need to stop dealing with China the way you dealing with them. You want China to deal with one of the ports going into the Panama Canal? We're going to evade you and take back the Panama Canal. Panama told China, we need to restructure our friendship. We need to put America priorities before yours. Denmark is an ally of the United States with NATO. What NATO means? If Russia attacked Poland, England, Germany, United States, Denmark, France, all NATO nations, countries will have to come to the defense of Poland.
And remember, that's why on top of that, that's why in Ukraine, Russia strategically made sure that they didn't activate any NATO type policy for retaliation, because that's why Russia was able to win that war against Ukraine, because NATO was unable to help Ukraine because none of the NATO flags was activated. So it's like one of those things, you know what I'm saying? And Denmark is NATO, but at the same time, you know, who ever knew that Denmark was a military power? Let's ask that question. You know what I mean? It's kind of hilarious.
But let's look at this dilemma.
You know what I mean?
Let's look at this dilemma. So if Russia, China, or any country, just like Burkina Faso was a French country, and then they kicked the French out, America using secret operations to help the French keep power. So if Denmark, who have sovereignty over Greenland, get attacked by the United States, will the other NATO member follow Denmark and come to their defense because they are in the same alliance? Or will they stay neutral because they in the same alliance?
See, that's where it gets real iffy, because the president of Denmark already got a little bit aggressive with Trump too, because Trump said that if the United States tries to take Greenland by force, that Denmark would be willing to go to war with the United States over the Greenland. So, which I think is just really posturing, because like I said, whoever heard of Denmark military? You know what I'm saying? I ain't even heard of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying they don't got a military. I'm saying that I've never heard of their military in action. We haven't seen them in any type of conflicts or any type of military action. So how are we supposed to even know if Denmark really got it like that? And, and then you're going up against the United States, one of the premier military powers in the whole world, and we got that ability to just drop bombs on you if it comes down to it. And, like I said earlier in the program, the United States will take Greenland if it becomes critical and crucial to the acquisitions of those rare earth minerals. Like they said on that video we just played from the previous show, they haven't even tapped into the mining and mineral operations that are possible in Greenland. All they've been doing really is surveying and calculating. They haven't really done any physical digging or any extractions of these minerals and these materials, but they have already surveyed and calculated the worth and the value and the quantity of these rare earth minerals, these different manufacturing resources. And that I was watching a program about it, and they said that Greenland, if the United States acquires Greenland, then especially with the current acquisition of Venezuela and the oil, and then we go into the rare earth minerals, then we would have a strong manufacturing base for the material makeup of the Taiwan superconductors and motherboard chips and other various hardware to create for military apparatus, quantum computers. And the most important thing in the United States right now in the Arctic manufacturing, especially if we acquire Greenland, in the northern portion of Greenland, they were talking about that they already surveyed the lands out and seen, because it doesn't really, even in the summertime, get too high above freezing, that it would be a perfect location for them to put the systems and the hardware for the AI, to run the AI. Because you know how they got the one in California and they got to use so much water to keep it cool. But they were saying that the AI companies have been doing new research on Arctic and Antarctic apparatus to build the facilities where they would run the AI from, because it would be easier to keep the computers cool, the towers, because it's already below freezing over there naturally. So it would, but we also would have to think about that from another scale, from the environmental impact, because if you put You got to think about it because, you know, like we did in the previous show, Henry, those AIs, the AI facilities, they have extreme heating capabilities, like where to the point where it can affect the ecology and the climate. So what happens if they put that in the ground over there in Greenland, and now it starts heating up Greenland? Do you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
you might as well say the AI facility is like a large battery.
And let's look at also this geopolitical perspective. India could be a great naval power. They could slow down China activity dealing with the Indian Ocean. But the United States will not push them to be that great. Whether they destroy themselves with nuclear weapons, you have Pakistan, you have China, you have India. United States will be okay with them destroying each other, then getting the upper hand in the geopolitical game. You have United States policing all the oceans, because with policing, they could guarantee that their sanctions could be enforced, that their economic resources could get exported and imported.
Yeah, they're just reassuring the stockholders with that.
So with the Arctic sea mass warming up, where it is getting more easy to transport goods, China do not have to ship goods through the Red Sea to get to the Mediterranean Sea to get to Russia. All they have to do is go north and ship their good through the Arctic. United
remember
States.
that China, remember too, we had that on that other show. China declared themselves a near Arctic nation too. So
yes.
So that making them also have the ability to make claims in the Arctic for territorial value.
So a ship with resources such as gasoline, petroleum-based product, would leave Russia through ships. America cannot stop that because they're going through the Arctic.
Right.
But if America could have complete control over Greenland, we could have missiles, more missiles. United States have exclusive right because of Denmark and Greenland allow United States to put military bases on that island. But the United States want more. They want sovereignty. Not permission to, when America want to make a move, we got to go talk to the Denmark and Greenland so we'll be able to do what we have to do. No, America want full sovereignty over Greenland so we can have legal rights.
It's the same thing we did to Venezuela, you know? They just want to be able to occupy it, but they're talking about, Trump's talking about making it the 51st state of the United States of America. And they were saying on, I think it was NBC or Fox News, they were saying that Greenland economically right now is in turmoil too, because they're having a funding problem, funding their government. And, they're trying to capitalize on that, the United States government. And that's why they're trying to offer them to become the 51st state of the United States by, because then if they become a state, what happens? They get 100% funded, fully funded. And right now, like they said, think about that too, Henry, right? What did they say was the population of Greenland right now? 57,000, right? 57,000, bro. I live in Rhode Island, right? The smallest state in the United States. Just for people's understanding of the scope of how small it is, you can go from one corner of the state to the other corner of the state, and we're talking about the farthest distance, and it's only going to take you an hour to get across the whole state of Rhode Island. About an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to leave Rhode Island. Come from Massachusetts and get to Connecticut. Now, with that being said, Rhode Island has far more than 57,000 people. Got about 1 million in Rhode Island. We got about 1 million populace. And Greenland is far bigger than Rhode Island. It's far bigger than Rhode Island. So it's not going to be hard for the United States to fully fund a populace of 57,000. That's not even going to hurt. That's not even going to hurt us, bro. Like, to be honest, right? That's not even going to hurt our pockets, even though we've been having so-called economic problems with the debt and et cetera, et cetera. But Greenland has the minerals to support their financial initiation into the United States from the funding perspective of being able to get them out of debt and being able to help them develop the country, because a lot of it is probably because they don't have the money, and neither does Denmark, to actually develop the extraction of the resources. Because, that's extremely expensive, Henry, to try to dig for the coltan, to try to dig for the copper, to try to dig for the silver, the gold. They got some petroleum as well, oil. And these products and rare earth minerals, they're not easy to come by in the world. Not everybody has access to these type of products. So the best thing for them to do at this point is to try to make a deal for development. But like they said, they don't want to be hasty, because they could mess around and get independent from Denmark, and then the next day get invaded by the United States. And with a populace of 57,000, we got more people in the military than 57,000. So that would be it probably would be easier than what happened in taking capture of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela. It would probably be even easier of a situation than that, unless it causes an international incident, which would trigger some type of NATO response. But it doesn't matter, because the United States is the main contributor, the main funder of NATO. You know what I mean? How do you attack the man with the money? You know what I mean? Especially if you don't got the funds to keep the movement going.
The president's reacting to criticism.
Go ahead, play the video.
criticism about his ambitions for Greenland. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly playing down prospects of the U.S. taking it by force in a closed-door meeting yesterday on Capitol Hill. But a statement from the press secretary last night kept U.S. military action on the table. Reaction from Europe has been swift. Denmark's prime minister said a U.S. takeover of Greenland would mark the end of NATO. And the president posted just a short while ago, Russia and China have zero fear of NATO without the United States, and I doubt NATO would be there for the U.S. if we really needed them. We will always be there for NATO, even if they won't be there for us. The only nation that China and Russia fear and respect is the DJT-built USA. The president also said, without my involvement, Russia would have all of Ukraine right now. We do know that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were in France yesterday talking with the delegation about security guarantees, try to bring that war to a close. Meantime, the
it's some type of tough situation out here.
Yeah, so United States is not playing down military action. They would like diplomatic actions, but if military option is on the table, they're going to be right there in the corner. I'm going to put it right there on the corner. I'm not taking it off the table, but it's there. But if I need it, I will use it. And
Henry, you know what that's like? That's the equivalent. That's like in the streets if we come to the table and we gonna talk business and you pull the strap out and put it on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the equivalent.
Like you know what I mean? Fishy go down, I'm gonna use it. I'm letting you see
already
I got my piece. And I am not scared to use it if anything go down, but let's get this job done. So
and then notice that they're also doing this pressurization onto Greenland and Denmark after they just did these actions in Venezuela to capture Maduro. So they're using that as the guarantee, you know, like this ain't a threat, you know what I mean? It's guaranteed. If we want to go in there with force, we will, beyond a shadow of a doubt. You heard what they said. If NATO has to, if the United States attacks Greenland or Denmark, it's supposed to trigger a NATO response. But they said that NATO is funded by the United States Department of Justice, so there's no way that NATO would ever respond.
And also Donald Trump said that China, Russia don't fear no NATO without United States. They fear United States. So if United States leave NATO, they take Greenland, and NATO fall apart, not under United States grasp, not under allegiance with United States. They open to China and Russia aggravation, nutrition. And without America, Donald Trump saying, y'all ain't nothing. That's some powerful words saying, hey, your allies, they ain't nothing without me. If I leave the table, your allies can't even take care of their enemy. So to come after a friend, it whatever. You out of your mind.
Not only that, you're attacking the country that got the wallet, that got control of the checkbook, and you already know that. And let's be honest about some other stuff. We already know that Netanyahu got his eyes set on Germany, got his eyes set already against some other NATO entities, some allies in the NATO, Turkey to be also mentioned. for military action. And if the United States ain't backing up NATO, what's going to stop Israel from attacking Turkey or Germany?
And you have
It's no United States.
And you got countries
it's not a conflict of interest anymore.
And you got countries like Spain, you feel, that recognize the state of Palestine.
That's in the NATO. Spain's in NATO.
That if Europe get disconnected with NATO, there ain't nothing for the United States to look at a former ally as an enemy to American national security with Israel interests on top of ours.
And guess what? And it's nothing for Israel to attack a country that's recognizing Gaza as its own territorial state in order for retaliation against the application of those political assets. You know what I mean? We gotta be smart out here in this world, because once the United States hedge of protection is took up off of you, you're gonna see how quick the hyenas and the other predators come out of the woodwork to attack these countries that was in NATO for their own self-interest, economically, resources, and things of that nature.
So we're going to look at an article real quick. Okay, let me share the screen. Let me zone in a little bit. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Read this.
Live updates. Senate advances measure to curb Donald Trump's use of force in Venezuela. In a rebuke to the president, the Senate narrowly agrees to bring up a War Powers Act resolution for a vote next week. The measure would require Mr. Trump to seek congressional authorization for further military operations in Venezuela.
So we have not Ted Cruz. I'm sorry, everybody. His name is Ron Paul. He's a senator, a congressman from the state of Kentucky. Ron Paul. He don't agree to a lot of United States military incursions in foreign arenas. He brought a bill up, but the Republicans struck it down. So they bring in another measure to the floor, and it will limit Donald Trump's action in Venezuela. See, the United States president have a certain amount of days if they want a military incursion into a country. They have a certain amount of days. And
It's
after
30
them
days.
days,
You have
they
a 30-day
must
limit.
go to Congress.
It's a 30-day limit. He has the War Powers Act. Under the War Powers Act, the president has the power to commit to military action for a term of 30 days before Congress has to take a vote on whether the action is constitutional or not, because if it's legal based on the legislations and whether or not they want to fund it in general too, because remember, they don't got to just, it doesn't have to just be legal. They also got to decide whether or not they want to fund that.
So the House of Representatives would have to see the legal ratification and justification of a war in Venezuela, and the Senate would have to set the funding, the necessary funding.
And this is why I was
for the
saying
president.
earlier. And this is why I was saying earlier in the show that we didn't put boots in the ground. You know, they just sent Delta Force, and Delta Force was able to acquire Maduro and acquire the Capitol building. And all it is now is and now they propped up an occupational government, and that's the enforcement, and and that's why Congress is having a hard time, because it's not a real conflict, because we didn't go to war with Venezuela. We didn't attack the Venezuelan military. The majority of the people who was killed in the acquisitions of Maduro was foreign entities, foreign agents, foreign operators. So it has no recourse in the country of Venezuela, because obviously we would have already heard about incursions of the Delta Force and the Venezuelan military, but the Venezuelan military has been very silent in the occupation of their country, and I think it has to also do it because the people of Venezuela wanted Maduro out of there anyway. So that's why Congress is having a hard time with trying to pull the reins in on Trump, because he just did like they said, it was, how you making a criminal move and then you occupy the whole country, but they're not using military force. That's because they can read if Congress passes that vote, what's going to end up happening is it's going to lead to the dispersal of the United States Navy back into its normal patterns of surveillance and security and operational functionality that it normally and typically would do on a routine basis, instead of being congregated over there off the coast of Venezuela in order to show military force and to be able to enforce the policies of what's going on over there in Venezuela.
In United States, justification is weak. Even the legal justification is weak, because Venezuela made a slang for military personnel who started doing corruption. And the United States took that slang and called it an organization and labeled Maduro part of that organization as a drug trafficker.
Yeah, because remember, Nicolás Maduro, he's arrested in New York City on criminal charges, RICO charges. Yeah, they got him on a RICO. How you gotta, and Henry, they got, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm sorry for laughing, but you gotta explain to me how you got a president of another country on RICO. You caught them on the RICO?
And even
hold on, because I got one thing to add, right?
RICO,
he only
give you justification to take the nation, or they still got a Congress and a vice president.
No, listen. This is even crazier, right? So Nicolás Maduro got arrested for the RICO, racketeering criminal organization, right? So only Nicolás Maduro and his wife was arrested.
Yeah.
What about the Secretary of State of Venezuela? What about the Vice President? because all these people was complicit in the criminal organization, technically, right?
Yeah.
All these people was complicit. They were involved. And then based on a RICO statute, right, a criminal organization, wouldn't that make Venezuela the organization? So then that would be like arresting John Gotti, but not arresting the rest of the mafia. But because remember when they, if you remember when they arrested John Gotti, they arrested 50 other mafia, 50 other people in the mafia, not just John Gotti. Remember they show you that in the court case where it was all of them in there at the arraignment. It was all 50 of them at the arraignment.
But let's look at this. Under the RICO, the leader, because I give John Gotti is the leader, but you got this guy named Rico. Rico is a low-level guy, and he capped somebody. He pew-pewed them. But we know by the order of John Gotti, Rico done the heinous act. Then just getting Rico, we want John Gotti because he could put hits on other people. So under the RICO Act, we put the blame of the head of the organization. We take the head of the organization off, chop the head off, the body will be discapitated. So
let me ask you a question. Hold on, Henry. Let me ask you something, though. Let me ask you something, right? So if the RICO is on Nicolás Maduro, right? Racketeering charges, fentanyl distribution charges. Where's the possession of the fentanyl? Where's the fentanyl? You know, I think it's gonna be, you know, I hate to say it, you know what I mean, but I'm gonna bring it up. It's looking like a history repeating itself type scenario, right? We had another situation like that when we invaded a country, and we had the same questions pop up about the reasoning why we invaded, right? We're still waiting in 2026 for the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We're still waiting. Where's the weapons of mass destruction? Does that mean in 2046? Hold on, let me say this part. Does that mean in 2046 we're still never going to see the fentanyl that they got Nicolás Maduro for?
Facts. So let's look at it like this. We took down Saddam Hussein.
Right.
It gave rise to a stable nation of Iraq. And that gave rise to ISIS.
Right.
Let's go over to North Africa, Libya. We took out Gaddafi. The civil war is still going on today. There's still two separate governments in Libya today. We see the conflict in Gaza where they showed us in our face that the opposition or the occupier will support small militia to go after their own people. So we will see gangs start to form to curve out territory of Venezuela, while United States military will only protect the oil rigs that pumping the oil out the country. We don't care about the people. We don't care about the civil government. We going to use our military to only protect and watch this oil to make sure this oil leave this country. And we going to control the payment. And we feel like if the country is unstable, we will not give nothing to the country.
Yeah, and let's not forget that's an example of that, because we did a whole nother show about another country that they did that to, Haiti. When Haiti nationalized their stuff, Haiti got their president got hit up in the middle of the night, assassinated, forget captured, he got straight assassinated. You know what I mean? And they gave Haiti the country to the gangs, and the United States took over the manufacturing of the natural resource and the production of the natural resources up in Haiti. So this is a similar tactic over here in Venezuela. Also, it's a tactic, you named Libya. It's also another tactic in Africa they used on Sudan. And now we're up in Nigeria for a similar effect, right? So it's really getting deep out here where we're just in these countries destabilizing whole nations of people and causing civil wars, causing all type of turmoil at the same time as the smokescreen for how we're extracting all these resources and these economic structures being placed in these countries for privatization and corporations to come in there and steal all the wealth and take all the profits and not see the people have anything to develop their nation or to take care of themselves.
So we're about to close it down for tonight. We're going to have two shows. One is Newsroom Vacation, show footage of Universal Studio. And the next show, before the vacation, we will show about a story where a man died, deceased, leaving his wife and 3 children behind. This woman was not an immigrant, but she got unalived by an ICE agent.
Yep.
Recently. If you've been paying attention to the news, an individual, a female, is leaving her children. The children will grow up without a father or a mother. You have places like Portland, Oregon, calling for ICE to get removed from the state and other places. We will be talking more about this situation and much, much more. Stay tuned to Newsroom, as we mean never end the work and service. We are here for the community. We love you. We hope each and every one of y'all have a wonderful night. And stay warm in this winter time. Stay warm. Stay hydrated. And keep us in mind as we push forward. Understand that we growing slowly but surely. We at 1,773. That's less than 300 more people for us to reach 2,000. We growing. For viewers like you will make this show possible. You. And for me, I say good night. So you have anything to say, Shin, before we leave out of here?
Well, you already know. Positive vibe, bring positive results. Positive results means you're accomplishing your goals. Just because you're going through a negative circumstance, don't mean you can't have a positive outcome. You know what I mean? So stay consistent, stay persistent in accomplishing your goals, you know, and get to those milestones. And don't forget to be reflecting upon where you've been, where you've come from, and give yourself credit, you know, because it's not easy living in this world that we live in. But at the same time, you know, you gotta honor your accomplishments and you gotta honor yourself, you know. So have a good night, folks. You know what I mean? Whether you're in the United States or you're in international, you know, we'll see you later.